To become valuable, stop being available. Welcome, warriors, back to the channel. People assume value comes from being kind, from being loyal, from being the person who always shows up. But here is the truth: the world hides from you. Goodness is cheap, hard work is everywhere, loyalty is expected. And yet, despite doing all the right things, you still feel ignored, still feel undervalued, still feel like people only notice you when they need you and forget you as soon as they don't. So allow me to wake you up. The world does not reward goodness. It rewards necessity. Machiavelli understood this better than anyone. To be valuable, you must make others depend on you. You don't rise by being polite. You rise when your absence becomes a problem no one can solve. Think of every powerful person in history. They weren't chosen because they were nice. They were chosen because without them, everything collapses. Here is the cold reality. If you can be replaced, you will be replaced. If they can live without you, they will. If losing you doesn't cause them pain, they will never respect you. So starting today, your goal must change. Stop trying to be liked. Stop begging for approval. Stop giving everything without return. Instead, become dangerously valuable. Become the one they cannot ignore, the one they cannot replace, the one whose presence makes everything move and whose absence makes everything collapse. Remember this: power is not about being visible. It is about being needed. This is the Machiavellian path to value. Quiet, ruthless, inevitable. And before we continue, I want you to write this statement in the comments. I make others need me. Say it. Embrace it. Live it. Because once you become necessary, the world changes its view of you. People treat you differently. They fear losing you. They protect the connection. They give more than they take. You stop being a background character in someone else's life. You become the source, the authority, the reason for their movement. And that is where true influence begins. If you are truly ready to unlock the dark strategy that makes your presence a privilege and your absence a nightmare, then stay right where you are. Because what comes next will change how the world treats you forever. The false premise of value society programmed you from childhood to believe your worth comes from being good, from being polite, from doing what everyone expects without resistance. But this belief is the reason why so many people live an invisible life, while those who understand power rise above them effortlessly. Because there is a dangerous difference between being appreciated and being essential. And most people spend their entire lives chasing approval. Smiling when they don't want to smile, helping people who give nothing back, working hard only to watch someone else reap the rewards, thinking kindness grants respect when in reality it grants convenience. And that is why the hard-working good guy is always the easiest to replace, always the first to be forgotten. You must understand the fundamental law of the real world. People do not value what is freely available. People admire what they must earn, and people fear what they cannot afford to lose. Machiavelli once said, "It is better to be needed than to be loved, for love is held by a thread that can be broken, but necessity binds with chains no one dares to remove." Every time you try to prove your worth through kindness alone, you diminish your own power, because kindness without leverage becomes weakness. Loyalty without boundaries becomes exploitation, and hard work without control becomes servitude. The powerful do not shout their value. They engineer situations where others depend on them for success. And once dependence exists, control follows automatically, because people will always protect what they need, even if they dislike it. Think about the times you gave everything for people who gave nothing back. When you were there for everyone else, but no one was there for you. This happened because you believed that doing more meant you mattered more. But in reality, it just made them realize they could take from you without consequence. You were taught to seek approval, to fear rejection, to think that being useful is enough. But usefulness is temporary. Usefulness is replaceable. Usefulness can be copied. And in a cold world driven by self-interest, the one who can be replaced will always be ignored. True value begins the moment people feel the pain of imagining life without you. And this only happens when you stop trying to be everything to everyone and start becoming one specific thing that people cannot function without. This is your shift. No more free kindness. No more endless sacrifice. No more silent suffering hoping someone notices. From now on, every action you take must increase your price, must increase the cost of losing you, must elevate your presence to a necessity. If you continue to live for approval, you will die feeling taken for granted. If you start living for power, the world will be forced to acknowledge you. And before we move to the next lesson, I want you to write this statement in the comments and declare your transformation. I refuse to be replaceable. The law of dependence. If you want real power, you must stop chasing approval and start building dependence, because people only protect what they rely on. And the moment your existence becomes tied to their progress, their comfort, their status, or their survival, you move from minor to indispensable. And that is where influence begins. Understand this. Dependence is not about manipulation. It is about positioning yourself so strategically that people crumble without your contribution. And Machiavelli once said, "The wise ruler makes himself indispensable. When his presence sustains stability, his absence becomes terrifying." Most people chase praise or affection, hoping someone will finally value them. But approval vanishes the second someone more convenient appears, while dependence creates an obligation, a fear, and a loyalty that cannot be easily broken because the cost of replacing you becomes too high. You must identify the skill, the resource, or the mindset that others need but do not possess. Then hone it until it is rare, until it is something they cannot replicate or replace cheaply. Think of every influential figure in business, relationships, or society. They are not loved because they are nice. They are respected because their removal creates chaos. And that is the exact position you must secure for yourself. When you build dependence, people will come to you even if they dislike you. They will agree with you even if they internally disagree. And they will protect you even if they secretly envy you, because their own stability becomes tied to your existence, and no one willingly destroys the hand that feeds them. The tragic state of most people is that they offer help without any framework to ensure that help is remembered or rewarded. They give effort away for free, and then wonder why no one values them. You must be smarter. Tie your actions to a return. Tie your support to a benefit. Tie your knowledge to a relevance. So when someone gains from you, they feel the weight of a debt to you. Because when people owe you, they treat you differently. Suddenly your presence matters. Suddenly your voice counts. Suddenly losing you is a risk they are unwilling to take. Create an environment where access to you is restricted, where your time is not cheap, where your inputs shape the outcomes. The more boundaries you build, the more valuable your involvement becomes in their eyes, and the more they will chase what was once taken for granted. This is the law of dependence. Influence is not taken. It is engineered by making others believe that without you, the future becomes uncertain. Stop giving everything away for free. Stop offering your loyalty to people who do not feel it. Stop making sacrifices no one asked for. Instead, become the core of progress in every circle you enter. And before we move forward, write these words in the comments with absolute conviction. They depend on me. The invisible authority power is most dangerous when no one sees how it works, because visible force creates resistance, while quiet influence creates obedience without question. And this is the kind of authority Machiavelli respected. the kind that controls decisions without ever needing to raise its voice or display force publicly. Invisible authority is when people believe they are acting freely, but their choices align perfectly with your intentions, when they feel they came up with the idea themselves, when in fact you planted the seed long before they noticed the thought. Machiavelli once said, "The greatest power is that which moves others without being visible." And this is what the smartest leaders master, shaping outcomes from the shadows. Weak individuals try to dominate with volume, threats, display, and ego. But this only exposes insecurity and desperation. The more obvious your influence becomes, the easier it is for others to resist or attack it. True control flows like air, invisible yet inevitable, necessary and pervasive, allowing everyone to breathe, but reminding them that without you, they suffocate. When you become the quiet force inside someone's mind, shaping what they fear, what they desire, and what they pursue, they will follow you not because you command them, but because they believe your direction is their own decision. Develop the ability to read intentions before they are spoken, to spot insecurity before it becomes a problem, to predict reactions before actions unfold. Then position yourself as the quiet solution that steers them forward, and soon their confidence will necessitate your presence. You become part of their internal dialogue, the voice that says, "What would he do? What would she think? Should I ask them first?" And when you reach that point, you no longer need to push. They pull you into every decision themselves. Think about every environment you enter. Instead of announcing your value, observe everything. Calculate the dynamics. Identify the weaknesses. Then quietly tie yourself to the key outcomes, so that when something works, you are the reason why, even if no one realizes it immediately. This subtle gravitational pull is what makes others orbit around you. Do not argue, do not boast, do not over-explain. Allow your actions to redirect behavior until people start moving according to your vision, without being told. When you become the quiet strategist in a world full of noise, chaos naturally parts around you because people begin to trust your direction without you demanding it. Influence is strongest when it feels natural, when others look to you not as a threat, but as a necessity for their clarity and advancement. Invisible authority means you are not the spotlight. You are the electricity that keeps the spotlight running. Before we delve deeper, mark your dominance by writing this simple statement in the comments. I control quietly. Strategic absence. Constant availability is one of the fastest ways to devalue yourself, because when you are always present, people begin to take your contributions, your time, and your influence for granted. And this is the trap that most ambitious people fall into, believing that more visibility equals more respect, when in reality, it often equals less. Machiavelli once said, "Too much presence destroys the perception of power. Absence reveals it." And he cautioned that the art of disappearing is one of the most underrated strategies in influence. Strategic absence is not avoidance or cowardice. It is the careful selection of when to be visible and when to step back, so that your presence becomes rare, precious, and ultimately commanding. When you always reply instantly, always attend every meeting, always offer yourself freely, people stop valuing your attention because it costs them nothing. But when your availability becomes restricted, your importance instantly multiplies. Because people subconsciously measure value by scarcity. Intentionally pull back in key situations. Do not oversell your talents. Do not answer every call. Do not explain every decision. And watch how the perception shifts. Suddenly, people start anticipating your input. They begin to wonder what you are doing. They start feeling the void your absence creates. And that tension alone elevates your authority. You are no longer a utility to be summoned at will. You are a variable. They must account for a presence that changes outcomes simply by not being there. Absence is a form of leverage. It forces others to act, to doubt, to seek, and ultimately to value you more than they ever did when you were constantly present. Use this wisely in every relationship, every workplace, every project. Your retreat creates desire, necessity, and recognition without a single word. Remember, power is psychological before it is physical. How people feel about you determines how they treat you, and nothing shifts feelings faster than the tension created by absence. Allow your silence to work like gravity, pulling attention, creating anticipation, and reminding others of what they stand to lose. When your presence becomes rare, your influence becomes undeniable. Do not confuse being liked with being indispensable. The two rarely align, and only through controlled retreat can you transform visibility into authority. This strategy also protects you from exploitation. Those used to constant access cannot manipulate what they cannot reach. And suddenly you control the pace of the interaction. Every absence must be deliberate, calculated, and timed to maximize the psychological effect. A missed call, a delayed reply, a selective appearance. Each creates a narrative that your presence is a privilege, not a right. Systemic value. True influence is not about being the hero who rushes in at the last moment to save the day. It is about building the system such that success cannot exist without your involvement. And when your role becomes structural, not decorative, you move from optional to indispensable. Machiavelli once said, "The wise man builds the machine so that he cannot be removed from its operation." And this principle underlies systemic value, the art of embedding yourself so deeply into processes, networks, and decision-making that removing you destroys the outcomes and reveals your true worth. Most people chase recognition for heroic moments, applause for visible efforts, and attention for solving immediate problems. But these fleeting gestures are temporary and easily replaced. Whereas engineering the foundation, setting the protocols, or shaping the strategies ensures that your presence is continuously required and your absence becomes costly. Start by identifying the core components of any operation you are a part of. What keeps the motion going? What ensures stability? What connects resources to results? Then position yourself as the linchpin, the point through which everything flows, the one whose involvement guarantees continuity and efficiency. When people rely on structures you created, they will naturally defer to your judgment, respect your time, and protect your role. Because losing you means losing order, efficiency, and progress. Systemic value is also about foresight, anticipating bottlenecks, redundancies, and vulnerabilities, and creating solutions before anyone realizes the problems exist, so that others begin to perceive your contributions as an invisible infrastructure, necessary but unobtrusive. Unlike being loved or admired, which can be subjective and temporary, systemic influence is measured by outcomes and dependencies, making you untouchable, even if your personality is not appealing or your presence is quiet. The truly powerful understand this. They do not fight for glory or approval. They build environments where removal is unthinkable, where every process, every resource, every team relies on their direction, insight, or involvement. This is a form of quiet dominance. Because while others focus on immediate wins or superficial recognition, you are building permanence, a network of interdependencies that cannot function in your absence. This is how empires endure and how organizations thrive around a single indispensable figure. The system matters more than the individual hero. To cultivate systemic value, you must stop thinking episodically and start thinking structurally. Where can I create foundations that only I can operate? Where can I embed knowledge that no one else fully possesses? Where can I tie my actions to outcomes so tightly that removing me creates a collapse, not a continuity? This is the Machiavellian path to influence that transcends charm, effort, or visibility. Before moving to the next principle, declare this truth in the comments and internalize it. I build the system. Embrace it, because the world will bow to the one whose presence ensures survival, progress, and control. And that is the point where you stop being appreciated and start being absolutely necessary. Psychological integration. To become truly indispensable requires moving beyond functional utility and embedding yourself into the psychological fabric of those around you, so that your presence is no longer optional, but central to their sense of confidence, stability, and achievement. And when people begin to associate their own success with your involvement, you move from a valuable asset to an essential pillar. Machiavelli once observed, "It is not enough to be present. You must become interwoven with the very identity of others." And this insight reveals a depth of influence that conventional power seekers often overlook. Psychological integration is subtle, strategic, and invisible. It means that your guidance, advice, or support is internalized by others so deeply that they cannot envision decision-making or progress without your input. It means your absence triggers anxiety, self-doubt, and hesitation. And it means your opinions, priorities, and habits shape the mental landscape of those you influence. Most people operate on a superficial level of influence. They help, they advise, they instruct. But once a person or group realizes they cannot maintain equilibrium without you, you have entered a realm of authority far stronger than any title, award, or promotion. Start by understanding their needs, fears, ambitions, and insecurities. Then position yourself as the stabilizing force that relieves their doubts, magnifies their strengths, and guides them towards outcomes they secretly desire but cannot achieve alone. When you consistently tie your presence to their emotional and practical security, you cultivate a dependency that feels natural, inevitable, and even comforting. This is why certain individuals command loyalty without threats, obedience without orders, and influence without visibility. They have been woven into the identity of those they lead. Your integration must be strategic. Be the one whose judgment shapes the plans, whose insight guides the deliberation, and whose involvement becomes the yardstick by which progress is judged. You do not control by force. You control by becoming the internal foundation of decision-making, so that people act in ways that align with your goals, even when you are silent. The danger for most is the failure to recognize that influence is often more powerful when it is invisible and psychological than when it is overt and mechanical. Those who fail to integrate themselves are replaceable, no matter how skillful or admired they may be. Psychological integration also protects your position. When you are intertwined with self-perception, ambition, or the perception of success, removing you risks not only operational failure, but emotional disorientation, hesitation, and regression. And this creates a level of indispensability that few ever achieve. To master this, observe, listen, and position yourself so that others associate competence, calmness, and possibility with your presence, quietly restricting access so that absence creates tension and approval. Before moving to the next principle, cement this skill with a personal affirmation in the comments. I am their foundation. Repeat it, embody it, and remember that once your identity aligns with theirs, you stop being merely appreciated and start being deeply needed. And that is the point where true, untouchable influence begins. The control of hope. The most powerful people are not those who dictate action through fear or authority, but those who control the future that people strive for. Because hope drives behavior, shapes choice, and motivates effort. And when you become the source of someone's belief in improvement, progress, or success, you move from a participant in their world to its architect. Machiavelli once stated, "He who commands the expectations of others commands their actions." And this principle reveals the subtle supremacy of controlling hope, the ability to tie yourself to someone's perception of possibility in such a way that their forward movement depends on your guidance, insight, or approval. People are naturally driven by the vision of what they want, but most never consider who shapes those visions. And if you position yourself as the gateway to those aspirations, they will align with you instinctively. Follow your advice without question and protect the connection that preserves the possibility of achieving their desired outcomes. Unlike coercion, which creates resistance, the control of hope creates voluntary alignment. Individuals move toward what they want, believing it is their own choice, while in reality, their path is entirely influenced by your presence, counsel, and strategic positioning. To achieve this, first identify what people truly aspire to: recognition, promotion, security, or influence. Then position yourself as the indispensable conduit of that progress. The person whose access, guidance, or approval determines whether their goals can be met, and gradually your involvement becomes inseparable from their vision of success. This requires a delicate balance. Too much control makes you a tyrant. Too little leaves you insignificant. But the right amount ensures that people are motivated to act in ways that serve both their desires and your strategic objectives. When you hold hope, you hold leverage. Disagreements become manageable because no one wants to jeopardize their chance at progress. Loyalty is earned without threats because people fear losing the opportunity, and influence extends far beyond immediate presence because the promise of improvement binds them psychologically to you. The danger for those who underestimate this principle is that they focus on power through visibility, confrontation, or immediate rewards, neglecting the more long-term strategy of becoming the source of the ambition itself. And this is why many capable individuals remain replaceable, while a few invisible architects guide entire organizations, movements, or relationships without ever forcing compliance. The control of hope is about patience, foresight, and subtle alignment. You do not declare your role. You embed yourself inside the dream, the aspiration, and the plan so carefully that removing you from the picture threatens not only the outcomes, but the belief in the possibility itself. Disappearing at the peak. The ultimate demonstration of power is not in constant presence, endless action, or infinite visibility. It is in knowing when to step away while your influence, reputation, and authority are at their highest. Because disappearing at your peak transforms presence into legend, scarcity into demand, and respect into reverence. Machiavelli once observed, "He who disappears at the moment of greatest strength makes his name immortal." And this insight captures the paradoxical strategy of absence. The idea that leaving while others depend on you the most ensures that your influence lingers far beyond your physical presence. Most individuals fail to appreciate this. They exhaust themselves, overextend, and reveal every skill, leaving nothing for mystery or anticipation. And when they fade, it is unnoticed because they never created the tension around their absence. Strategic disappearance is different. It is deliberate, calculated, and timed to maximize the psychological impact. It is the art of making your absence felt like a vacuum, an emptiness that everyone acknowledges but cannot fill. When done correctly, people begin to mythologize your contributions, overvalue your presence, and fear the loss of what they cannot replace. And that fear becomes a quiet form of control, because they will adjust behavior, decisions, and priorities around the memory of your involvement, even without your return. This strategy works in all relationships, organizations, and social dynamics. When your power is unquestioned, retreating creates a tension and yearning, and the resulting perception elevates your influence beyond measurable skill or accomplishment. Disappearing at your peak also protects your legacy, while constant presence risks exposure, fatigue, and diminishing impact. Leaving at the moment of maximum respect ensures that your contributions are remembered as flawless, decisive, and untouchable. The key is to anticipate the psychological reaction, retreat slowly, with purpose, and allow the absence to generate speculation, reflection, and recognition, so that when people realize what they have lost, the admiration intensifies, and your reputation becomes unattached to immediate action. This creates the phenomenon where your name, ideas, and influence persist in the minds of others, guiding behavior indirectly and quietly, because people naturally elevate scarcity to value. And the memory of what once existed wields as much power as what exists now. Many fail because they confuse retreating with avoidance. Strategic disappearance is never about hiding out of fear or insecurity. It is about applying influence through timing, perception, and foresight, and understanding that the most powerful form of authority is the one that lingers in absence rather than being constantly required in presence. By mastering this, you convert respect into awe, attention into yearning, and utility into legend. Conclusion. Now that you understand the ruthless architecture of value, it is time to integrate these principles into every facet of your life. Because knowledge without action is powerless, and influence without strategy is meaningless. The world does not reward kindness, effort, or loyalty. It rewards necessity, and the individuals who understand this become untouchable, not by force, but by design. You have learned that being liked will never make you indispensable. That dependence, invisible influence, strategic absence, systemic integration, psychological embedding, control of hope, and disappearing at your peak are the true currencies of power. Begin applying these lessons deliberately. Make yourself essential. Embed yourself into the structures and minds of those around you. Control the aspirations they pursue, and retreat when your presence has achieved maximum impact, because the mastery of perception, scarcity, and influence transforms an ordinary existence into strategic authority. Remember, the people who dominate the world are not always the ones who work the hardest or talk the loudest. They are the ones whose absence is feared, whose involvement is critical, and whose vision shapes the choices of others. Every action you take from this moment must increase your necessity, increase your leverage, and secure your indispensability. Stop chasing approval, stop giving without calculation, and stop being replaceable. Instead, create a presence so rare, so valuable, and so interwoven with outcomes that losing you becomes unthinkable. And as you implement these strategies, I want you to take one final step. Like this video, share it with those who need to understand true influence, and subscribe to the channel to continue sharpening your mind with ruthless, unwavering truths. Leave your affirmation for this transformation in the comments. I am dangerously valuable. Say it, embody it, live it. The world will now see you differently, respect you automatically, and fear what they cannot replace. You are no longer optional. You are necessary. You are untouchable.